Brandon Swanson. The year was 2008. A young man, Brandon Swanson, drove home after a night out with his friends. What happened next is a mystery that remains unsolved. It started like any other night out. Brandon was laughing and enjoying himself, but soon after, he vanished into thin air. For over a decade, authorities and family members have been searching for answers. Where did Brandon go? Was he kidnapped? Did he run away? Was he murdered? This video will explore the mysterious disappearance of Brandon Swanson and the unanswered questions that still linger. Join us for this video on the mysterious disappearance of Brandon Swanson. Brandon Victor Swanson, age 19, was a Minnesota West Community and Technical College student. On May 14, 2008, Swanson set out with friends to celebrate the conclusion of their academic year. He attended two local parties that evening, the first in Lind, close to his house in Marshall, and the second in Canby, around 35 miles away. Swanson's friends would subsequently testify that he did not seem drunk but had been drinking that night. Swanson left Canby after midnight to go home, a journey he undertook almost every day as part of his commute to school. However, that night, instead of using Minnesota State Highway 68, the most direct route between Canby and Marshall, Swanson elected to travel along remote country roads, maybe to evade the police since he had been drinking. Swanson drove into a ditch near a farm field and could not regain traction as his car wheels were now raised off the ground. Swanson contacted his parents at 1:54 a.m. to ask if they would pick him up. He told them he was near Lind, just 10 minutes from their Marshall home. Swanson's parents left to pick him up, maintaining contact with him via cell phone. "Don't you see me?" Swanson inquired as he and his parents flashed their headlights to indicate their locations. Brandon or his father couldn't see the respective flashing headlights because Brandon, for some unknown reason, was 20 miles away from where he thought he was. Swanson eventually hung up. Swanson then informed his parents that he would walk back to his friend's home in Lind after his mother called him back. Swanson's father dropped off his wife at their residence and went toward Lind while staying on the phone with his son. Swanson suggested that his father meet him at the parking lot of a popular nightclub in Lind, and he opted to take a shortcut through a field. Swanson's father overheard his son talking on the phone while walking, and then suddenly yelled, "Oh, s**t," as the line disconnected. It was the last words anybody would hear from Brandon Swanson. His parents' repeated calls to his phone went directly to voicemail, and for the remainder of the night, Swanson's parents, with the assistance of their son's friends, scoured endless gravel roads and fields without success. Brandon's mother, Annette, contacted the Lind police at 6:30 the following day to report her son missing. Swanson was an adolescent college student, and it was not unusual for a young adult to remain out all night after completing college studies, the police responded. As the hours passed without Swanson's return, local authorities joined the search and authorized a countrywide search response. Swanson's phone was still operational, and the police triangulated the position of his last call to the closest mobile tower. His last known location was in Porter, some 20 miles from where Swanson believed he was while talking to his father. Swanson's green Chevrolet Lumina was discovered that afternoon in the vicinity of Porter, where police had focused their search efforts. The vehicle was trapped in a ditch off Lyon-Lincoln Road between Porter and Taunton, but authorities discovered no evidence of foul play or Swanson. A comprehensive search was initiated, including police dogs, aerial surveillance, and hundreds of volunteers. Before losing Swanson's scent, the K-9 unit took authorities about 3 miles away from the ditch to the Yellow Medicine River. No personal belongings or clothes belonging to Swanson were located on the path to the river, nor along the 2-mile stretch of river in the area, which can be traversed on foot in around 6 hours. Over a period of 3 weeks, search and cadaver dogs discovered nothing. Swanson had just disappeared into Minnesota's remote countryside and winding roads. After the initial search efforts failed to locate Swanson, most investigations were discontinued. A sheriff participating in the investigation continued to walk the 2 miles of Yellow Medicine River in that region every day for 30 days in the event that new evidence surfaced. The Swansons continued to leave their porch light on all night as a sign of their optimism that Brandon will ultimately return. Late in 2008, Emergency Support Services, a Minneapolis-based search and rescue company, established a 140-square-mile search area and concentrated the company's efforts there. Nevertheless, several farmers refused to let search dogs on their property, especially during planting and harvesting seasons. Late that autumn, when crops had been harvested, the search continued. The dogs followed a scent of human remains into an area northwest of Porter that had not been previously explored. At that point, 122 square miles had been thoroughly investigated. As with all cases where people inexplicably vanish, theories start to crop up by experts, armchair detectives, and the public. Let us look at some of these theories, and please do not hesitate to comment in the comments section if you have a theory of what happened to Brandon Swanson. Foul play. Foul play is conceivable, but improbable. The area in which Brandon was located by cell phone records was sparsely inhabited. Taunton had a population of 135 and Porter had a population of 175. The majority of the country is agricultural and there are few homes. It would have been nearly impossible for someone to lay in wait for Brandon, and no one in the Porter region could have anticipated that he would get his vehicle stranded in a ditch and continue on foot. Similarly, it is generally reasonable to rule out the possibility that this was an act of opportunity. Considering the limited population sizes of the two towns, it is unlikely that someone saw Brandon walking in the dark and chose to murder him. Or was it foul play with the often used "they owed drug dealers and were killed" that has been used in many cases of missing persons before? Some Redditors think so and put it forward as a theory. On YouTube and Reddit, I've seen a few comments left by people from the area who claim that they've heard rumors about Brandon owing a drug debt and being found and killed by dealers. One person said that he was left in a field and ground up with cattle feed. The other said they heard that he is buried in one of the Dakotas. Obviously, this one is much more likely. Of course, you have to take comments like that with a grain of salt, but it makes quite a bit of sense. They go on to say, a pipe was found in Brandon's car. This was confirmed on the Nancy Grace segment. It is not specified what type. Of course, a lot of teenagers smoke pot, and this doesn't really prove anything, but it at least somewhat helps support the theory. As the author said, take comments like that with a grain of salt. Brandon staged his disappearance. Some people suspect Brandon may have engineered his own disappearance, although this is highly improbable. Brandon was an excellent student and had just finished a certificate program in wind turbine technology. He had no issues at home or school and was looking forward to continuing his education at an educational institute in Iowa a few months later. He was not involved in any legal issues and was close with his family. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance further exclude the possibility that it was faked. It is implausible to intentionally run your vehicle into a ditch on the side of the road, contact your parents for assistance, and then remain on the phone with them for over an hour before feigning a distressing event. Brandon was involved in a hit and run. A third possibility is that Brandon was hit and killed by a vehicle while walking, and the driver dumped his body somewhere else in a state of panic. Although there have been a few instances where this has happened, it is unlikely that Brandon met the same fate. He told his father that he had not been going down the road, but rather through fields. Both mobile phone data and the trail followed by tracking dogs suggest that Brandon was not on the road. In addition, there would have been proof at the accident site if this had occurred. Blood, tire marks, and possibly car fragments should have been discovered. However, after considerable investigation, No such evidence was discovered. One theory that has gained a lot of traction over the years is the farming equipment theory. One Redditor explains this theory perfectly in a post. It essentially puts forth the notion that Brandon was walking, tripped into the river, which would explain the "oh shit" his parents heard him say, as well as the phone line staying active, and made his way to the other side but lost his phone in the process. Police dogs did pick up a scent that continued beyond the river, which would support the theory that he made it to the other side alive. They continue. He was now dealing with being freezing cold from the water, and temperatures, I believe around 40 degrees Fahrenheit that night, so he basically just stumbled into a farmer's field and passed out in the crops. Then that morning, while still asleep, he may have been run over by a piece of farming equipment. It has been reported that dogs apparently got a scent hit on farm machinery on one of the nearby farms, and this farmer has been reluctant to allow searches on their property. With all these theories floating around, what if the most plausible one is what turns out to be the closure of Brandon Swanson's disappearance case? Brandon's disappearance was simply an unfortunate event. He was trying to navigate on foot through the dark fields and country roads. There were no streetlights to guide him, and no homes or businesses he could use as markers. While walking, he had remarked to his father that he could hear water running, but he did not seem too alarmed by it. Is it conceivable that he fell into the river at some point, drowned, and his body was carried downstream? We will only know if tangible proof is uncovered. Brandon Swanson has been missing since May 14, 2008. He was 19 years old at the time, 5 foot 5 inches, and weighed around 125 pounds. He had brown hair and blue eyes. He was last seen in Canby, Minnesota, wearing a pair of blue jeans, a blue striped polo shirt, a black hooded sweatshirt that zipped up the front, and a white Minnesota Twins baseball cap. He was also wearing eyeglasses with silver frames, as well as a sterling silver chain. He was carrying a black Motorola cell phone, a wallet, and car keys. If you have any information on Brandon, please call the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension at 877-996-6222 or email them at bca.coldcase@state.mn.us.